Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hopefully you're doing all right. I know I'm extremely excited today, and if you're a subscriber of my channel, you're definitely in for a treat. Today you'll hear the different viewpoints and perspectives from two CEOs leading the way in innovation, forward thinking, and development of financial services and technology. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Nick Cowan, the CEO of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, along with Mr. Mike Kayamori, the CEO of Quoine, which is a leading fintech company that provides trading, exchange, and next-generation financial services powered by the blockchain. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to answer some of the community's questions along with my own. And I guess I'll start off with a question of my own that's been on my mind quite often. Bringing the chart up on the screen for any of the viewers that aren't familiar with it, but there's typically 5 stages to consumer adoption or technology innovation and the acceptance of it. But there seems to be a make or break moment that's called the chasm. If you're familiar with BlackBerry, where you saw Blackberries all over the place and then they really quickly disappeared, it seems that they failed to pass the chasm, which is that make or break moment. I'd like to know, where do you see us currently at with these newer technologies?
Yeah, I think we're just crossing the chasm, right? Like when I started 3.5 years ago, we were just very early. I still think it's still early, but right now we're right at the cusp of mass adoption. So it's one of the most exciting times right now.
I think Mike's absolutely right, and we agree. I think, you know, when you look at the origins of this market, and particularly the token space, it was very much crypto experts, you know, trying to help fintechs by contribution develop that community. And I think what's happened is over the last 3 years, you've seen it's been so successful that it's starting to go mainstream. And I think that leap over the chasm, you know, Kodak a couple of weeks ago, is, I think, just an early indication. Yeah, it's a key moment, right? It's the adoption of mainstream companies thinking, okay, here is a way for us. And I think, you know, governments are going to follow. They're going to issue tokens instead of debt.
I think that was really well put. I completely agree. And it's reaffirming to hear from two fintech CEOs leading the way in development that you also believe that we're right on the cusp of that early majority phase. Which leads me to my next question, which is about crossing the chasm and what it's going to take to continue moving forward. I see that you both have formed a partnership, which I think is crucial to the development of these technologies. But I see a lot of questions from the viewers and the community thinking, okay, these guys seem more like competitors. They're offering very similar products. How will this partnership work out to benefit them both, and what will it entail?
Yeah, Nick, please start.
I think from our perspective, you know, if you look at the big picture, which I think is there's an adoption by both probably institutions and corporates, where we see a mainstream drive towards acceptability of distributed ledger technology, etc. So we think on a 10-year view, the tokenization of economies is happening. And I think as part of that, what our obligation and our duty is, together with Mike, to try to bring some governance and best practices to this market. And, you know, the world is an enormous place. And if we are collectively of the view, Quoine and GBX, that we're just literally at what we believe is the start of, I guess, phase 2, the start of a mainstream cycle, then, you know, we want to do everything we can to bring liquidity and best practices to the community. And, you know, somebody once told me, don't reinvent the wheel. Quoine have a proven, fantastic business model. And, you know, a lot of the things about businesses, people can often make it difficult. But if you connect with the professionals in that business and you share the same core values, you know, we found immediately with Mike and his team, Seth, Andre, all the guys, that there was a collective belief in the same as us, that if we can bring some governance and qualities and investor protection mechanisms to this market, that's only going to grow the community. So actually, no, we see partnership is the best definition of what we're trying to do, and in no way competing.
Great. I hope that sums up a lot of questions for anyone that was uncertain or on the fence regarding the partnership and what it actually entailed. And hopefully now you have a deeper understanding of how crucial these partnerships are and how they can be advantageous to both parties. Now, thinking a bit about technology, and the Quoine development team. I've read your white paper multiple times, and I see that the team is going to develop a blockchain for the cash token. Is that going to be released in 2019?
That is correct. But if I can go back to what Nick just mentioned, right? So when you look at it from a bird's eye view, when you look at it from a very high level, we're all stewards of this new crypto token economy, right? But when you look at it from a clear distinction, there are people who are pro-regulation, and then there are people who are, I wouldn't say anti-regulation, but they're more ideology-driven, a free society, and those are the people who really built and supported the initial growth of cryptocurrency and specifically Bitcoin. And now, as Nick mentioned, it's going mainstream. So people who have the same vision where the new crypto economy is going to be for the masses, that means it needs to be safe, it needs to be secure, there needs to be governance, there needs to be compliance. So that is the direction that the market needs to go, or else it will continue to be a niche industry. And when you look at it from that perspective, we're all part of the same ecosystem and we need to work together. When you look at global stock markets and exchanges worldwide, there's many, right? And they're all starting to consolidate. We believe that we have the best technology, the best platform, and we want to build that ecosystem. And it was natural for us to work with Gibraltar.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, what Nick said as well about not reinventing the wheel and taking on a technology that you guys already have a great team in place to develop. And this fragile moment in time, as far as, I mean, this is also groundbreaking and revolutionary. And the fact that it's handled with care when we're crossing the chasm and we don't fall down that and it's just some technology that was just a distant memory in time. And we keep going on the same old ways we used to. That's my main point, is I think it's people need to understand that regulation will give this some legitimacy and not to be so scared where, you know, you're either pro-regulation or no regulation.
Yeah, it is. It's actually a good thing, right? Anytime someone touches a store of value or when it's a medium of exchange, no government is going to leave it free. It's never going to be that. There's going to be some kind of regulation. And it's a good thing. That means it's becoming mainstream, right? So you should embrace it and you should take advantage of that. And that's how we look at it.
And with Nick, you have the upcoming Rock ICO. And I think that would be a good segue into talking about the sponsorships and how all those different metrics will work. And it looked like you guys are going after two main things, an ICO platform, and then you guys will also be the exchange as well, but transferring these digital tokens to digital securities.
Yeah, I think it ties into your last question. You know, I think look, we're not going to evolve into a mainstream market until, you know, we can demonstrate that there are some core values and best practices in place. And I think, you know, if you look at the volatility over the last week, and it's a very good example. As the market matures and you have, you know, for example, institutional accounts starting to really get involved in this market, then I think, you know, a lot of the volatility will probably settle down as the market matures. And I think that's a really important thing, because at the moment there is definitely a huge degree of risk for, particularly for people who might not really understand, you know, the difference between risk management and money management and all those sorts of things, which I think actually are vital as the market matures. So I think what we're trying to do is to say, well, look, we can actually play a small part, we believe, in trying to help that evolution. And I think it starts with the fundamental core, which is we need to try to help issuers get access to funds, right? That's the first thing.
Yes.
And they get access to funds by meeting, let's just call them investors, okay? So I'm just going to call them investors instead of contributors, because it's just easier for me. But we want to be able to bring those two parties together into a secure and trusted marketplace. And that really is kind of the driver here, right? So how do we get there? So I think from the utility token space, which I think is absolutely really just at the start of evolution, I think if we can bring best practices to that market space in terms of having, you know, a sponsor firm being able to take an issuer through the process and introduce them to a cleared pool of contributors, I think that's a great first start. I think secondly, as the market space is maturing rapidly, and we talked about Kodak earlier, or that same fintech decides in 3 years' time to perhaps maybe release a little bit of equity, then you want to be able to offer that same service. So for us, we go from GBX, the utility token exchange, and right through to GSX, which effectively will be able to have tokenized securities on the same exchange. A completely digital ecosystem for all phases of the capital raising cycle.
Now, with those two separate exchanges, you guys, to my understanding, you guys are more of a fund manager stock exchange, as you mainly focus more on funds, whether it be like an index or what I'm trying to get at is, are you looking to do more of an ETF type deal where you can put these in some sort of an index and then offer them through GSX based on the tokens?
No, I think there's a number of things we can do. So let's talk about. I guess I'll give you 60 seconds. First of all, we had to go through a cycle with our regulator where we could expand at a rate at which they were happy to come on board with us, because we were the first stock exchange in Gibraltar, and our regulator had never regulated a stock exchange. So we started in the funds business. We then went into fixed income, securitization. We did the first Bitcoin asset-backed security in 16. And then as we got to 17, we were going to go into the equities business. And we were looking at the archaic, redundant technology that was on offer. And we thought, well, you know what? Behind the scenes, the token space sale is absolutely exploding. Why don't we try to actually do something innovative as opposed to maybe possibly being a bit of a follower? So that was the evolution of our thought process. And that led us to look at the token sale space and bring in best practices. And we could then adopt a lot of that technology to put our main exchange on the blockchain. So I think what then happens from there is, I think, absolutely just a world of opportunities. I think, in fact, one of the things which we're excited about is, let's just say in April, we admit to trading a token, and let's say that is from an issuer. At the same time, we can actually securitize that single token and issue an asset-backed security on the main exchange, which opens up the whole institutional market. So it's a wonderful series of solutions, where as an issuer, you don't only get access to the crypto community, but actually there's an opportunity to structure something which will be available to institutions because it's a debt security listed on an EU regulated market. It's those type of solutions that come right back to that initial thing which I said. If we can help issuers get access to funds, and we can help investors get access to those opportunities, be it a utility or a security in a safe marketplace, that's only going to help everybody.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I love the direction you guys are going with Mike, and this is kind of for both of you. Looking back into regulation and talking about the SEC, and just makes me think about the overall exposure the U.S. market has. What we saw with China, where they discontinued their ICO platforms, or they deregulated them, or they did not allow them, and then it forced them to go to places like Singapore and Japan. And do you see that just happening, like a currency outflow, a digital currency outflow, in a way of innovations are now going to be open to these countries that are more open to the innovation of technology?
Yeah, I mean, it was always the case, right? Especially in the digital age, innovation doesn't have boundaries, right? And that is one of the beauty of innovation as well, where talent is also borderless. So now when you look at talent and innovation, and also your customer base is going to be the entire world. So how do you try to regulate a certain industry or a certain business model within just one country, right? Especially when it's completely all digital. So that's why when you look at the existing utility-based ICOs, where you issue your tokens, which is digital. You collect your funds or purchasers via Bitcoin or Ethereum or these tokens. So that's also digital. It's very difficult for one country to try to regulate that at each country level. That said, there's already existing laws around securities, around equities, around debentures. So last year, 2017, and this year, it's all around the utility token. But I think, as Nick mentioned, there's going to be a security token, equity token, or securitized products that will come into the market as well. And the countries or the governments or the entities that are innovative, that are progressive, are the ones that are actually going to embrace innovation. And that's where that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is a very exciting time to be a part of it all and watch it all develop and unfold. I think that's a good segue into my next question, which is from the community. And it seems like they have a lot of questions regarding the ROC token and the Cash token, being that they're very similar. They'll coexist on two separate exchanges. I think their worry is that one might outshine the other, but I just wanted to get some clarification on what's the strategy for both of them coexisting on separate exchanges, and how staking will work with the ROC token.
Yeah, the ROC token. Yeah, the ROC token has a number of aspects to the utility, and I think I'll answer the first question, then we'll talk a little bit about Cash, and then Mike can take over. I think we wanted to try to create a really strong community based around core values. We see staking as a huge part of that creation of core values to protect the integrity of the market. And those staking details I won't bore you with now. You can read about them in the white paper, but they're all there. The ROC token is also about accessibility. And if you hold $1,000 worth of ROC token, then what will happen is you will get access to that first 24 hour of every token that comes through our platform as the public sale kicks off. And we think that's a really valuable utility. I think in terms of Cash, again, we see that strategically as a signal of the importance of our relationship with Quoine. We really do. And secondly, the way GBX works is listing fees and sponsor fees are payable only in RKT. The trading fees are payable in any currency. But if you pay in RKT or Cash, you get basically a hefty discount. And so for us, we wanted to open up not just our clients to using Cash, but also we wanted to open up Quoine's clients and Mike's clients to get access to a marketplace over here. Because again, somebody said to me yesterday, aren't you competing? And I said, not at all. I mean, you could, as this goes mainstream, Mike could be talking in 2 years' time to Sony. And Sony are interested in doing some type of token. And Mike says, oh, by the way, have you thought about a dual listing on our EU partner, GBX or GSX? And then what have you done? You've introduced Sony to a global marketplace. And whether they're paying in Cash or RKT to settle their trading fees, who cares? What's important is the community has just suddenly grown exponentially larger. And that's what this is all about.
For example, we don't have any banking relationships in Europe. We don't have any subsidiary or entity there either, right? A lot of our European customers, they always say it's difficult to wire fiat. And by the way, that's why I think there's a big opportunity for crypto and tokens. But right now, because it's still a fiat-dominated worldwide economy, we don't have any access to Europe, right? So it's almost natural for us to find a partner that we fundamentally share common vision, common goals, right? So it was natural for us to work together. And as Nick mentioned, we're already talking to large Japanese companies who are interested in doing an ICO. They're interested in us, not because that we're regulated and licensed in Japan, but we have access, we can give them access to global listing and global offering. And it's almost natural for us to bring that to GBX, right? And because Japan was the first country at a nation level to regulate cryptocurrency, and also they embrace ICO as well. So for a Japanese company, they want to raise capital and they want to be listed globally. And that's how we work with GBX as well. It's very natural. It might not be Sony, but it could be something maybe even more interesting, and I'll bring that with you. It's going to be very close. It's going to be a few very interesting things.
Anthony, I think it's also worth adding that the crossover of crypto to traditional, I think, is absolutely vital to acknowledge. And I think if we were to think of ourselves as a working example, okay, if I had tried in the Q4 17 to run around the world trying to sell equity in GSX, I can tell you it would take me a year, and I have no idea how I would have got on. I think what's happened with what we've done as a company is we've now been introduced to a whole new world of clients, which is A, hugely exciting, but B, let's say hypothetically, at the end of 19, we decided to sell a piece of GSX through a tokenized security. I have no doubt whatsoever that the crypto community, who hopefully will now know us, trust us, and believe in our vision, would potentially be interested in buying the tokenized security in GSX. It's just an example of how I believe this marketplace is actually going to A, grow, but B, converge as both communities cross over. And I think that's the hugely exciting thing about the moment in time that we're in.
Yeah, I definitely love what you guys are doing. Two countries coming together to raise the standard, set the bar for years to come, and really pave the way for new innovation. And speaking of innovation, a market that trades 24/7, it never seems to stop. I'm always exhausted. Do you guys think that this market will innovate and move faster than you even anticipated?
Mike, you take that one.
Yeah, of course, of course. Like, for example, a year ago today, no one didn't really understand ICO. The term was still not there, right? A year from now, no one knows what kind of innovation might happen, right? So from that perspective, it's a pretty amazing environment where the community and the service provider, the token issuer and the token buyer, were all part of innovation, right? Because they fund through buying the token. The token issuer is going to build a service, a platform, based on the capital that they raise. So this is an entirely new way of building a business, building an industry, building an entire sector where the community participates in building something innovative. So if I knew what's going to happen a year from now, or 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I would be lying. That said, what I know is the improvement speed, the innovation cycle is all going to be shortened, and it's going to improve, and it's going to speed up. So it's exciting times, and we're actually fortunate and honored to be part of that.
Mm.
Now, Nick, I know you're a professional trader specializing in the Wyckoff theory along with volume spread analysis. I was wondering if I could pick your brain and get your take on what you think the most recent pullback retracement we're experiencing in the market. It seems like January is a normal time for that, but we're seeing across the board almost everything dropping by 50 to 60%.
I guess people are paying for Christmas, right? I think what happens in every market cycle, and the way I've evolved as a trader is, you're looking for market movements, and I think we're in a pretty nascent market in crypto but the same values apply. Okay, so what you're looking for is accumulation, a market move, and then distribution, followed by perhaps another market move down, or vice versa. And I think somebody asked me at a conference in probably November, what would I do currently? And I said, look, at the moment, it's a one-way bet and everything is basically going up. So what you're looking for now is probably some type of climactic action. And that's actually probably what we've just seen. Climactic action followed by accumulation. So I think the correction from 20,000 to 11,000 or whatever the hell the move was, or from, Ether from 300 to 1,400 back down to 750, that has the signs to me of a bit of climactic action, and I suspect there's been a large amount of accumulation over the last few days. So as a trader, and I answer this as a trader, I believe the outlook for Ether is positive, because I think the community are going to find solutions for off-chain processing to enable the chain to grow. So I think at the moment that period of people cashing in and taking profits, I think it's presents opportunities. But again, it comes back to the more people that come in, the more institutions that come in, the greater the liquidity that grows. Probably the less volatility you will see in terms of 25% moves in a day.
Maybe the cash blockchain will be the next Ether.
Actually, when you look at innovation historically, but I'm not looking about like 100 years or 200 years. I'm only talking about the innovation in the internet space. The first mover is not always the most successful or the most dominant. It's the fast follower, the people who learn, the people who come with a better product. Right? Google was never the first search engine, right? Facebook wasn't the first social network, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Amazon was the first e-commerce, but they were the first and the fastest, right? So when you look at that, there's always going to be disruptive innovation. Right? So being first is not always the best. It's actually, do you have a better planning, doing and monitoring, and the cycle is the most important thing, right? So that's when you look at it, you probably don't need a block, right? We understand that we need it to be distributed, right? But do you want it fully distributed where it's fully consensus driven? That means there's going to be a lot of forks, right? You probably don't want that either, right? So you need to have that right balance. Because right now, so one of the things that people are saying is that 2017 was the year of the ICO, 2018 is the year of the fork, right? So it's actually easier to do a fork if you have a supporting miner who can help you. But again, when you look at it from that perspective, there's always newer, better technology. How do you execute, and how can you really disrupt? We believe that when we look at the landscape and looking at Bitcoin, Ethereum, IOTA, EOS, any of these blockchain, they were not tailored need to build financial services. You cannot. That's why we were not able to build our exchange on top of a blockchain. Yeah. Because we couldn't achieve the performance, the latency that we wanted. So based on our needs, our pain point, we are building our cash blockchain. And it might not be a block. It just could be a distributed ledger, or it could be a hash graph. We are looking at the best of breed so that the next generation of fintech companies, the next generation of innovators can use our chain or our DLT or our blockchain to build the best services out there. So there's always going to be innovation. There's always going to be disruption. Whether you internally disrupt yourself like Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. After selling books, they started Kindle, they're starting Prime, they're doing everything. If you can continue to do that, you will win. But if you do like internal politics and fighting like Bitcoin, right? There's people who will come and eat your lunch.
Yeah, and take all that talent. One way I look at it is there's only so many talented people on that level. I mean, I sometimes compare it to there's only so many David Beckhams in football. There's these savant level players. Is it the same way in development where, there's so many of these companies and it all gets spread out? Do they run out of talent in a way where only the best companies will have these type of Vitalik Buterin's running the show?
I actually don't agree with that. The next Vitalik is a guy who could be 14 years old right now, right? Talent is everywhere. Giving that talent the right opportunity, that's the difficult thing. That's why a lot of these blockchains or initiatives are trying to find talent. They're opening up their platform to bring in developers who can contribute so that your platform becomes stronger and better. Right. That's why I'm a big believer of the public blockchain, because you want people to contribute and make your platform better to continue to improve.
And that's what Nick was saying. I watched in one of his latest videos about the younger kids there telling you what to do and that you're so old and things like that. I mean, I'm sure they don't give it. Do they give it to you that straight?
They do. Yeah, there's no respect. There's no respect anymore. That's the problem.
But you need the right balance, right? Because you need some gray hair for governance, compliance, because that's where it touches the real world. But you need these fresh minds, these hyper-performing developers, mathematicians, physicians. You need the right mix. So I think it's important that, especially when you want to go mainstream, where politics, governments, and regulation come in, you need that experience, you need that knowledge. But then you need to embrace technology and the next new thing, and you need that young talent. So I think you need that nice mix.
Yeah, it's a hard mix too, right? Being able to adapt to the market that doesn't stop and then keep security in place and try to have it open source in some aspect to allow the whole community to accelerate it.
Agreed. That's why you need common goals, a shared vision. You need a mission. If you don't agree, That's why there's Bitcoin and all these derivatives, right? Because they don't have the common goal
Digital
on what
divorces.
their direction needs to be.
And coming from the trading side and high frequency algos, Wall Street turning into mathematicians, scientists, do you see that as one of the stabilizing aspects to the volatility of cryptocurrency? Or is it futures contracts, things like that, going to even it out? What do you think is going to cause that in the future?
Yeah, I do. I believe the more participants that come into the market and the more products you have, then the greater the liquidity pools drive. You know, the thing about the evolution of hedge funds, and they got a bad rap in '08. You know, hedge funds created one of the largest pools of liquidity for traditional investors because you know you could now have buyers and sellers of securities and sellers of securities they don't own, and I see that absolutely developing in terms of the crypto universe. But I think you know Mike is absolutely right. Look, our job as the I'm not going to put Mike in the same bucket as me, but I think we were pretty much the same age. He looks younger, but he's pretty much the same as me. You know, our job is to you know is to try to provide the stewardship to allow innovation to absolutely just evolve beautifully, and if we can play that role in terms of understanding the risk aspects, and that's what we bring to the table. Being able to get regulators to understand what is happening, to get governments to try to understand, you know, how to enhance this and not be scared of it, then we're filling our role. You know, I've always tried to hire people smarter than me, which for me, believe me, is extremely easy, but I always have. And you know, this is you know when I was the head of equities during the .com bubble, you know, a lot of our hires were double PhDs coming in to build our algos and our tech. You know, so. This isn't something to be afraid of. I think it's just the second cycle of, as Mike said, the internet. This is Internet Mark II. I think what we have now is a different type of Beckham. We now have Messis, right? So they're just different types of players who we need to, as Mike said, give them the platform to just basically get to work and build something for the greater community.
Now, talking about adding more participants and exposure in the market, I have questions from the community wanting to know if the ROC token is going to be listed on more than just the GBX and Quoine exchanges.
I think, you know, look, yeah, I think, you know, look, during the public sale, obviously, we don't necessarily want to talk too much about listing because obviously then, you know, we want to focus on the utility. But look, I think my view on this is absolutely, as of day one, we're on Quoine, you know, and that created a few questions. But we want to provide that functionality and utility from day one. And I think also transparency and liquidity is vital to the future. Will we consider listing RKT on other exchanges after the public sale ends? I mean, the answer is probably, but at the moment we haven't absolutely talk to anybody other than Quoine. That's it. I mean, that's our main strategic other side of the world partner. But we know we will look at it, and a lot of the things come from client solutions, right, and client requests. So I think if it is right for our community and the broader community to have RKT trading on multiple exchanges, we'll look at it. You know, I think that's if that provides greater transparency and liquidity, then fantastic. But at the moment, we have our strategic partner, and we're very happy with the position we're in.
Well, and along with Gibraltar and Japan, and you were speaking about setting up a meeting with the SEC and talking about that generation as far as getting them to understand what these things are, because I think that's one of the biggest, the entry or the learning curve of it all. Do you think that once they understand it, that's the main thing that holds them back from allowing these things to accelerate or develop?
Yeah, I don't think my job is to help the SEC understand anything. I think they'll beat me. I think what we can do is we can say to the SEC and other regulators, and we would love that platform. And we have regulators now talking to us and our government and our regulator. Is we can say, listen, as one of the first jurisdictions in the world to have a framework for licensing and regulating in DLT, and as hopefully one of the first licensed and regulated exchanges in the EU to have a sponsor-based and listing rules-based solution for token issuance. We're trying to actually take the lead here in terms of providing investor protection and regulatory certainty to this marketplace. And we are absolutely, I mean, look, our documents are going to be published. I think our sponsors code is being published tomorrow. So everything is going to be on our website. So there are no secrets there. But I think if we can make other regulators comfortable that there is a marketplace developing where actually there are participants out there who like regulation and what it serves, then that's where the grey hair comes in. If we can have those conversations, we're doing our job. And that's why one of the core values of Quoine is they're licensed and regulated. And that's what we're going to be. And we like that. We like those values. So we see that as very much part of our mission to, as Gibraltar PLC, to do whatever we can to basically help any regulators that want to know more. We're completely at their disposal.
Considering both of your companies will be developing platforms that will help ICOs come to market and find the liquidity they need for development, I was wondering, Mike, you said earlier that was year of the fork. Is this year of the ICO? Legitimate ICO?
Let's let Mike take a crack, because he's
No, absolutely. I think it's also going to be the start of an equity token ICO as well. There's going to, because when you look at the ICOs that are happening, yes, they claim that they're utility tokens, but when you look at it, the utility element is very limited, right? As an exchange, the need for a payment, a medium of exchange for listing, you need a utility token. That makes a lot of sense. But for a certain product, do you really need it as a utility? And when you actually reverse it, for the people who have the token, are they using it as a utility? Right? Or are they looking at it more from just the price appreciation? So when you look at that, there's a little bit of this gray area there. So I think there's going to be a little more clarity around utility tokens and securities or equity tokens, and the progressive governments or regulators will be able to embrace that. So I think 2018 is going to be a year. It's going to be a continued year of progression for the crypto token economy, but it's going to be much more clear, right? As I think Nick mentioned, you don't need to educate the SEC. But we talk with the Japan FSA almost every week. I speak with them almost every week. My CFO talks to them almost every other day, right? When you actually look at it, it's actually over-regulated. But what the problem right now is they're trying to put a square peg in a round hole, right? They're trying to put a new industry, an entire new industry, into an existing regulation, which doesn't make sense in most cases. That's why Gibraltar came up with DLT, right? So they're putting a new framework. Let's look at it from a new perspective. So that's what's going to be necessary. I think it's already over-regulated, and it's regulated in the wrong, I wouldn't say the wrong way, but it's regulated in a traditional sense that needs to be thought a little differently. So we continue to work with the Japanese regulators to try to not educate them because they're self-learners, but to show them what's actually happening in the world.
I completely agree, and I love that angle. One of the things is people think that it's a share of the company in a way, and unless they get voting rights for holding X amount of tokens, it's not the same thing. And then going back to, the CME futures contracts, being able to stabilize the volatility in the long run. I read a book called Zero Sum Game about CBOE and CME, and said something like $615 trillion was in 2016 the over-the-counter futures derivative market. What kind of capital do you think we're going to see this year flow into the market?
So I can start because Nick is more of the expert here. I was actually at the CME conference 2 months ago speaking about crypto and our exchange. But as Nick mentioned, you need more participants, right? Until recently, it was more of the ideology-driven people. Right now, the year of the institutional investors are coming in. That said, we need a nice balance of retail and institution. We also need product and features as well. You need derivatives products, options, swaps, futures. You also need margin, CFD, leverage. So you need the equity market has been around hundreds of years, right? The crypto market just started. So it's important that CME, CBOE, NASDAQ, and they all come in. It's important that we have a certain amount of leverage. We have other derivatives product. All these things will be necessary. Then I actually think when you look at Generation X, like the younger generations, the millennials, this is my personal thought, and Nick, please chime in. I think the market could be bigger than the equities market. It's easier to understand. It's new. It's shiny. It's something that they can resonate. Right? It's not these old companies anymore. It's these new and emergent technologies. When you when you talk to the younger Japanese people, or even when you go to Korea, the younger generation are not even interested in bonds. They're not interested in equities. They're interested in crypto and token. So when you look at that, I used to look at cryptocurrency as a subsegment of the entire financial industry. I actually think, if done right, it could be the main. That's how bullish I am.
I agree with Mike's last point. I think if you look at this whole new universe of people coming into the market, as Mike says, the millennials, if they are currently owners of utility tokens, and that same, you think they're going to cash their Ether and utility tokens in to go and open an account with a brokerage and go and buy IBM stock and get a bank account? Honestly, I don't think so. What they're interested in is actually buying equity in the same company which they own a utility token from. And I think that will be the cycle we go through. And I think what CME and CBO, the Chicago boys are doing, and NASDAQ and everything, is just going to provide, as Mike said, you need to have a yield curve. You need to have a swap market. You need to have a loan market. You need to have all these products, individual calls. You need to have the derivatives market basically is there to provide liquidity. That's ultimately what it's there for. And I think as the more participants come in, the more margin offerings that you have, the greater access you're going to have to millennials to get more involved in the broader market, but also that institutional liquidity, which is absolutely vital. I think Mike is right. If you look at the last couple of years, if you can, as a startup, instead of, I don't want to be the historical model about going to the VCs and trying to get some capital in return for really probably quite a big piece of equity, and then if you miss your if you miss your targets, that's it. You're kind of dead man walking. What has happened over the last couple of years has completely transformed the way fintechs and startups and innovative people can get access to funds to get on and make a difference. I think this maturing of markets is just going to be a phenomenal thing over the next 5 years. And those big exchanges, as particularly the futures guys, we need them. That's going to be vital to the adoption.
But more of an actual futures where you're holding the underlying asset as opposed to it just being on paper, or was there a different trade-off with crypto than how that will work?
Well, my view is, what is a future? It's a promise, right? So it's me making a promise to you that I'm going to deliver you something in the future, right? That's the thing, right? And it's the same with an option. You're going to give me a premium to have the right over me to do something. So I think it's a variation on a very similar theme. So I think my view is, if you can, at the moment, if I want to short Ether today, where do I go? Right? So I know my public sale is going to give me some Ether. Okay, my public sale is happening in the next 3 weeks. So I know I'm going to be getting some Ether. Can I go and hedge that today? Because right now, when the price is going from 1,400 to 700 to 1,050, I'm sitting there thinking, what am I going to do with my Ether on that day if it's flying around 25%? Okay, so if I had that ability today to perhaps stick out a forward, to lock in, and absolutely know that I'm going to get the money that I'm looking to raise, I would be looking at that market, and whether that was buying a put, whether it was shorting a call, doing something in the swap market, doing something in the futures market, doing an over-the-counter derivative between me and Mike, because he has a different view to me on the price of Ether. That's what you need to be able to get to. So that's the reason for that market developing.
That's what blew my mind with Quoine so much is the different prime brokerage offerings you guys gave and that we're going to see in the future. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we're going to need to, about the liquidity in this market. But I know you guys are both big CEOs and super busy. And is there anything you wanted to add in that maybe I didn't pinpoint on, and we could let the new traders out there know about the ROC token and any new developments coming out of Quoine? I know we have. Did you want to add anything about the sponsors and how that's going to work, or just wait for it to come out? Would you say Friday?
Yeah. So step one for us is we're going to release our sponsors code, and we're hoping that's going to be released tomorrow, and that'll be published on our GBX website, and that allows applicants globally, if they want to download and fill in the application form and apply to GBX to be a sponsor firm. And that's if you like, tick one in the box of a really exciting start. And then we'll be releasing the listing rules for token issuers in the next couple of weeks. And then we will look to test and get the coin tech in. And then our timeline is to hopefully be back end of March, early April, those first tokens coming to GBX for admission. So that's going to be an absolutely fantastic, development for us. Meanwhile, we've got the RKT public sale, which is underway. We're in whitelisting at the moment, and then in early Feb, we will basically move to our public sale, and we are absolutely hugely excited about that closing, and then RKT starting to be traded on Quoine. In the third, fourth week of Feb. Mike's back, so let Mike say something as well.
I apologize. My power went down, and I had to repower.
No worries.
My PC.
We're just talking about any upcoming developments that you may want to let the viewers know about Quoine. I know you guys are really working on scalability and being able to process withdrawals a bit faster. I mean, that's what we're seeing across the board. We're seeing new registered users at an unseen rate on all the exchanges across the board, and being prepared for that is definitely going to be key in growth.
I was actually talking with the GBX guys yesterday as well, that their customer support or ops team needs to increase like tenfolds, right? Yeah. So we need to expand in hundreds of people, because there's so much customer request on many things, right? Because it's related to their money, it's related to their asset. So other than performance, platform, foundation, your operations, your customer support, it really needs to be top-notch, because the amount of people coming in, the interest level is amazing. That said, from our perspective, what we want to focus on is to make sure that we have a wonderful, amazing, and successful ROC token public sale. Right. This is actually one of our first opportunities to do a real ICO together. Right. So our cryptos, we're going to have this self-service ICO, but for the ones that we really work together on, this is going to be our first one. And also because part of this is we're going to work on the GBX platform as well. Right. So those are the two key things, milestones that we are working on. And it's exciting times. I want to know more of the details as well. And I actually told Nick, how can I participate on the public sale? Because there's probably going to be a cap. There's going to be there's no real opportunity to own significant amounts. So, but I'm waiting to hear the details of it.
Yeah, and how does that? Isn't it that you'll be releasing for the first 24 hours to your users, and then it will be on Quoine? I mean, what if it sells out in the first 24 hours?
We got whitelisting now, and then there'll be a 24-hour window for everybody cleared for that first period of the public sale. And what we'll do is we'll set a cap on the maximum subscription during that first 24 hours. Now, if there's any left, then it goes to public the following day, and there's no cap. First come, first served, and if there's any left, then obviously that will be your second opportunity. So in fact, we're actually saying to people, get whitelisted, because you'll get potentially 2 bites at the apple. But but that's our process. And obviously, part of our public sale, we're absolutely just ecstatic that that's being done through Mike, and that gives us access to his expertise, his client base, a whole new market, and that's just absolutely brilliant because it's introducing those people to us as well. So for us, it's an absolute win-win.
And how did you guys originally connect? I'm sorry to cut you off there, Mike.
Well, I think we were destined to meet, but actually, my former boss introduced. I think it was Thomas or Ben. So these things just find its way, right? If you're in the same space and if you share the same vision, you're destined to meet.
I guess I'm not surprised to hear that it worked that way, but it's also small right now, and that's why I'm just so fortunate to be able to get to talk to both of you. I mean, you guys are really like heroes to me because I think you guys.
I mean, we're all part of the same movement, right? So it's exciting times.
What were you gonna say right before I cut you out, or?
No. Actually, I was just gonna add to Nick where we already have hundreds of thousands of users who are whitelisted. I mean, KYC cleared, right? Mm-hmm. So we're actually telling our community, because we're going to follow the same rules and the limit that any one person can subscribe. So we're actually asking or advising our users to sign up with GBX as well. Yeah, right. This way, because the cap, you can potentially get both, or you can still miss out on both as well, because there's not a lot that goes for public sale. And it's an opportunity for our users who are already, from our perspective, are whitelisted or KYC cleared to sign up with GBX beforehand so that they have an opportunity in both.
Well, I'm definitely, this is sports to me in a way, just sitting back and watching everything unfold. And I really appreciate you both spending time to walk me through this and educate our viewers a bit. I hope I can get back to you guys in about 6 months, 8 months and follow up on the developments and how everything went through. And if you guys need anything from me, I'm sure it won't be much. But yeah, I just really appreciate it. And I had a great time talking to you guys.
Thanks for being a great host. You're absolutely fantastic, Anthony. Thank you.
I'm trying.
But thank you so much, Anthony. I look forward to seeing you in person.
Oh, yeah, Mike. That sounds awesome. I would definitely look forward to that.
Good to see you guys. Thanks very much for your time. Thank you.
And I'll see you. Right. I'll see you soon, Nick.
Okay, Mike. Take care. See you guys. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, guys.
All the best.
Take care.
Cheers.
Okay,
bye.